actually got Nathan on to talk about golf because obviously the US Open is getting underway on Thursday at Torrey Pines in San Diego. One of the major subplots has been the Brooks Koepka, Bryson DeChambeau beef. We think, well, I don't know, have we decided that the beef is real? Have we done a proper beef is real? Do we think
yeah,
it's real? Okay, right. Apparently DeChambeau is doing his best to convince us all that it's all just a bit of fun.
No, I think it's fun. There's a point where it's great banter. I personally love it. I think that as time goes on, I hope on the weekend we can play against each other and compete. I think it'd be fun and be great for the game.
Just banter, Nathan.
It was just banter, eh? I think it's gone beyond banter at this stage. I think Bryson might like it to be banter. I think there's a certain lack of self-awareness with Bryson, which is probably what irks Brooks Koepka and an awful lot of the players out on tour. I think on Brooks' side, he genuinely has a real disdain for Bryson DeChambeau. I think he has taken it too far, Koepka. While I love this in so many different ways, and I love the back and forth, and I want it to keep going, I do think the offering of free drink to the fans that were thrown out for shouting Brooksy at Bryson was a little bit too far, because they're going into a major championship this weekend. Some people are idiots. Some people will turn up, have had a few drinks, and think, if Bryson's in contention, if I shout the right thing at the right time on his backswing and he blows the tournament, I'm going to be a bit of a hero. I'm on Brooksy's side. And maybe that's over-egging it, maybe. Maybe I'm exaggerating, and that simply won't happen. But I just think, fair enough, have a go at each other, don't like each other, have your back and forth, but almost encouraging fans to have a go at the other one in golf isn't exactly ideal. Like, golf is generally played in complete silence. If you suddenly have people shouting at you, it's massively, massively off-putting. It'd be brilliant. It'd be one of the biggest golfing moments of the year if they somehow ended up together over the final couple of rounds, even if it's early in the day. There'll be more people watching the two of them than anybody else. I can understand completely if Bryson was offered the chance to play with Brooks and he turned it down. There is no benefit. It would be an absolute circus. And Bryson is the defending US Open champion, produced one of the great US Open performances to win at the end of last year. He is going here with a genuine chance of being a back-to-back US Open champion, and anything that would distract him from that, he needs to stay away from. So I think he would have been really silly to agree, even with all the PIP money that they are putting around for the highest profile players that surely Brooks and Bryson have done quite well with over the last few months.
Just explain the PIP money.
This was something that came in the last couple of months. It's a $40 million fund for basically the top 10 players on social media. They have a range of different criteria, but it's essentially the more marketable you are, the more of this fund you will get. It's a response to this Premier Golf League, which is backed by Saudi Arabian money, who are trying to break away from the PGA Tour, which will be 18 tournaments a year, guaranteed massive pot of money. They're trying to bring over the best players in the world. It hasn't really got off the ground at all yet. No player has said they'll go. The PGA Tour have had to react from that. They've said that anybody who plays in one of these events is thrown out of the PGA Tour, won't be allowed playing majors. But also it has given the current players an awful lot of leverage. And they have gone in, and PGA Tour have signed $1 billion TV deal quite recently, said, we want more of that cash. We are the stars here. So they came up with this system that will essentially just reward the best. So the players who were already earning the most money will now be given even more money for interaction on social media, for the amount of time they're covered on the television. All the stats basically veer towards the guys that we see all the time anyways, with the addition of somebody maybe like Ricky Fowler, who hasn't shown great form over the last couple of years, dropped out of the top 100 in the world quite recently, but is still, I would imagine, in the top 5, certainly in the top 10, and will be getting some of this bonus money,
right? Because
of his profile and his personality and his likability factor. So it seems to be skewed on positive publicity, because the most public golf event of the year so far has been Tiger's crash.
He's probably not getting...
Tiger, I would say, will still maybe have to play a certain amount of tournaments, but Tiger would still be number 1 on this list every single year. But Rory McIlroy will be number 2 or number 3, and if suddenly there's an extra $10-15 million bonus for not having to do a whole amount, well, that's probably keeping the Saudi Arabian money at bay.
Okay. would that perhaps lead you to conclude that some smart people in the background might be stoking this and therefore this might be fake?
I don't think it's fake. I think it is probably being elevated to another level by those smart people in the background who are telling both Brooks and Bryson, actually, this is doing no harm for your profile, for the game of golf. Like, people are interested in this. People who don't sit down every Sunday night know about this now.
Yeah, and that's not nothing. Like, you know, I'm sure there are people in the golf world who are holding their nose at the whole thing and saying this is terrible, this isn't golf at all. But actually, this is exactly what golf needs. This is the embodiment of the 16th, the waste management. Is it the 16th, the waste management, when they have the that's what
Open, yeah.
This is the next step of that. Like, this is their version. And I was talking half facetiously earlier on about, like, what are the odds of the two lads actually getting in a ring and selling pay-per-views? I was looking at the numbers for. How many pay-per-views do you think did we do for Floyd Mayweather against Logan Paul?
Oh, it was Logan. I thought it was Jake. I'm not sure.
A million? Was it?
A million at
right.
50 quid a pop. That's 50 million from that, and then there was other, like, tickets and there was other income on top of that as well. So Mayweather apparently made 65 million from that fight alone. That's more pay-per-views than Tyson Fury against Deontay Wilder. Like, you know, which was a brilliant fight. Like,
it'd be a shock, but you're dead right. Like, that sort of money can influence players. You'd love to see it because you're talking about two big men there. You're talking about two very big men in Bryson DeChambeau and Brooks Koepka.
It started out as like this ludicrous notion in my head, and then you're like, actually, the world we live in right now, Floyd Mayweather, the greatest boxer of all time, and also, you know, one of humanity's great villains, made 250 million from the McGregor fight and then makes 65 million from this. Like,
yeah, I think the risk of injury will be too much for that to possibly happen. But on the greater point, there are a lot of people who aren't touching at this and thinking this is bringing a whole new level of fans. And golf is going that way. You're right. Tournaments around the world are trying to replicate what they have at the 16th at the Phoenix Open. That sort of atmosphere, the rowdiness, the raucousness, the getting rid of the silence of golf. That actually, this thing that was so pure and made it so enjoyable and was such a part of our summers of sitting down for a long 6 hours at the Open Championship, and it was a calm, relaxing affair, that actually people now want to be entertained. And we've seen Super Sixes, we've seen all sorts of alternative forms of golf come in. I think bit by bit we're going to get away from that silence, that more and more fans will be encouraged to make noise. Golfers will grow up in an environment where they're used actually to having to hit golf shots with a lot going on around them. And absolutely, Brooks and Bryson are doing well out of this. I do genuinely think that Brooks Koepka has a extreme dislike of Bryson DeChambeau, and I suspect he's not the only one. Like, DeChambeau has worked his brand brilliantly. So first he comes on to tour and he is the scientist, and he has sort of like been in your tech drawing class back in school for the junior cert. He had all that sort of gear on the putting green, working out his angles, and it gave him a point of difference. And a point of difference, it seems, on the PGA Tour is the worst thing you can possibly have, because everybody's going around on you and they don't like you to step out from the crowd. So there was a wariness of him. He built that brand. So the second you saw Bryson DeChambeau was the scientist. Then he returns after lockdown. He has bulked up massively. He has put on a huge amount of weight, a huge amount of muscle, and suddenly he can hit the ball further than anybody else. Yet when you went down into the statistics, he wasn't hitting the ball that much further than anybody else at all. And actually, he was just better at talking about it. He is brilliant at describing what he does, at talking everybody through. He does long Instagram videos of his workout routine. So he sells himself, and he takes a few more risks. He plays up to it at times. So at the Arnold Palmer Invitation at Bay Hill, you know, he goes for the par 5 straight across the water, and he's raising his hands and he's celebrating. It's brilliant to watch. Like, you are getting excited watching this. Other players could, maybe 2 or 3 other players on tour could try that shot, but they just don't want to because it's not the sensible shot to play. But when you look at the stats of his driving distance for the season, when you look at the stats of the major so far, you know, he's not massively longer than a Rory McIlroy. So he's very good at selling himself, and that is bound to be pissing off a lot of the other players with the amount of attention he's getting.
And if they're all getting paid now extra for that type of attention, then this is what's going to happen. They're effectively being incentivized not to worry about winning the tournament, but to worry about having those 2 or 3 moments over the course of the 4 days that are going to end up going viral on social.
But that is golf, and what was happening with the Premier Golf League it was in some ways very similar to the Super League. So when you take a step back from the Super League in football not working, you're left with a Champions League that isn't exactly perfect and is going to veer towards that Super League format. Likewise with the Golf Premier League, you think, no, you're going up against the great institutions of golf. And then you look at what's happened in the PGA Tour, where everything is massively incentivized with money for nothing. So the FedEx Cup is just, again, an excuse. It's the end of season playoff that the player who's already won the most money is now going to be rewarded for that with $15 million even more.
Yeah.
Like we've Troy Merritt, who's on Golf Weekly. Troy Merritt won this Kodak Challenge about 10 years ago, which was a season-long competition where they would pick one hole on one tournament every week, and that score would count to an overall score at the end of the season. And he won £1 million for winning it.
Nice.
He didn't even realize he was properly in contention until the last 4 or 5 tournaments, and suddenly he's not concentrating as much on winning the tournament as actually winning this competition. Now, he ended up in a bizarre scenario where on the final tournament, he got into a playoff for the Kodak, and he holed a putt on 18 that kept his card for that season, went from keeping his card to playing in the Kodak playoff and winning £1 million straight afterwards. But golf there's several of those type of incentives that are out on the PGA Tour and on the European Tour at the moment to just give the best golfers more and more money. Never mind getting into appearance fees, which quite often, particularly in that Middle Eastern swing, the appearance fee is far greater than any fee you would get, any prize you would get for winning the tournament.
Yeah, and appearance fees are kind of a bit of a dirty little secret that you're not supposed to do, but it actually all happens, and it's not public, essentially, but it's kind of accepted that it's going to happen.
The appearance fees?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think most people would realise when Dustin Johnson suddenly rocks up in Saudi, that there's a reason he's there, but he is probably getting several $1 million for that. The prize fund for the tournament is probably $1 million, $1.5 million, and they're offering that to 7 or 8 of the top players. So yeah, it is a very dirty little secret that is out there, but the money is there. Saudi is obviously a very different issue from a lot of the places that they're getting offered this money, but if you are in the top 20 in golf right now, it is a very lucrative place, and it's only going to get better. Despite COVID, despite everything that's happening, golf seems so far to be pretty much unaffected.
Yeah, the Saudi Arabia issue is obviously huge, but Donald Trump his administration was locking kids up in cages on the border with Mexico and separating them from their parents, potentially in some cases forever, because some of those kids have not been reunited. And nobody's any human rights issues with going playing in America. There's definitely
most of these golfers have no issue playing with Donald Trump.
Yeah, the Saudi thing is there's a little bit of whataboutery when it
there is, but you see the effect of that sport washing with the Premier Golf League was when it first emerged. The entire conversation was the Saudi money. It was, well, actually, this couldn't happen because the players surely wouldn't go and take the Saudi money. Whereas now that it's come back up again, there's very little mention, actually, of where the money is coming from. It's the debate about what it means for the future of the game, what it means for the PGA Tour, what it means for the European Tour. So the conversation shifts very quickly.
Yeah. There is a second golf league that isn't Saudi money as well, up out at the moment as well, right? Separate to the Saudi money, isn't there?
Yeah, there's, to be honest, I don't think either of them are going to get off the ground anytime soon. The fact that the European Tour have gone in with the PGA Tour and have this strategic alliance means that they're in a very strong position around protecting their brand. And also the PGA Tour are just going to keep throwing money at the best golfers. I say this new initiative is basically £40 million for the best 10 golfers in the world for doing nothing. Yeah.
Okay, so briefly, we've got a couple of minutes to talk about the actual tournament itself. What's going to happen?
Well, I'm really excited about it. Then you sit down and you look at the tee times again and you remind yourself that a lot of the players aren't teeing off until 10:30 tomorrow night. We are in California, in San Diego. There's an 8-hour time difference. So this is going to be late Sunday night, probably 1:30, 2 a.m. by the time this actually finishes up. It's not the most exciting golf course in the world, Torrey Pines. It did provide one of the greatest major moments ever when Tiger Woods holed that putt on 18 to get to the playoff and then won it on one leg against Rock Immediate back in 2008. That's the last time it held a US Open. This was Tiger's course. That was his 8th win at Torrey Pines. I was listening to John earlier. I agree on John Ram. He produced the performance of the season so far in the first 3 rounds at Memorial. He absolutely loves this course. Had his first PGA Tour win here in 2017. Top 10s in both majors so far. He switched clubs at the start of the season, moved to Callaway, switched ball. Now seems actually a lot more comfortable with that. You'd have to assume with what we saw at Memorial, he is fully on board with everything that he's doing with Callaway. And he seems to have reacted, looking at his press conference yesterday, seems to have reacted well to what happened at Memorial with COVID and with the way he was told the news, was totally accepting that the PGA Tour had no other way of going about this, that he knew when he was deemed a close contact at the start of the week that this was a definite possibility. Yeah. So he seems to have taken it in stride. So John Ram is a worthy favourite, and he would love to see him win it, because just that passion, and without going down the stereotypical Spanish golfer route, like, I know some people want to knock it out of him. Like, there's an anger in there at times. There's a breaking of clubs, but he wants this, and he's just such a all-round brilliant golfer. He's won on every type of golf course. We have a strong connection with him here in Ireland as a 2-time Irish Open winner, won all around the world. He deserves to win a major, and this one is set up beautifully for him. The other player I really like, Patrick Reed. So, like Tiger back in 2008, Patrick Reed has already won here earlier in the season. I backed him at the Farmers Insurance Open. He loves putting on these Poana greens, which is a word and saying you're going to hear a lot over the next while. So the majority of the greens on the West Coast are this type of grass. It's very bumpy. If you look at Tiger's putt in 18, the one he rolls in from about 15 feet, it bobbles all the way into the hole. So Patrick Reed is generally brilliant at them. We know he has an absolute sensational short game. Like, after he won the Farmers, Brooks Koepka is talking about how it's just a joke how good he is around the greens. And he's a decent price, I think, Patrick Reed as well. Like, Rory is coming in as a complete dark horse, like, barely being mentioned. He's only played twice since he won at Quail Hollow, the PGA. Nobody knows where he is because everything's been done in the background, working away with Pete Cowan. Maybe he emerges and everything clicks into place, but it's hard to make that case without having actually seen it. So okay. I think this is set up to be a really good major. The type of course it is, a traditional US Open style, long rough. We'll have all the best guys. And one more for you, Jerry, because I know you're like a big outsider.
Yeah.
Jimmy Walker, former US PGA winner. He's about 500 to 1. I'm not saying he'll win it. Back in first round leader. He had Lyme disease for the last 2 or 3 years, fallen off the radar completely. But he is brilliant on these greens. He's brilliant on the West Coast. And he had his first top 10 in 3 years last time out at the Memorial.
500 to 1, Lyme disease. Where else would you get it, Nathan? Ignore those YouTube commenters. You always bring it. Thanks very much for that. We'll have more from Nathan, of course, on Golf Weekly this week. You should subscribe to the Patreon. You can get it on patreon.com/golfweekly or OTBsports.com/golfweekly.